We're live.
Yay!
Hey, Steve Dale, how are you?
I'm talking to you, so I've got to be really good. It looks like my neck is cut off here, but that's okay.
I think you look quite nice tonight. I think you got dressed up for us.
Well, for you, never dressed up enough.
Sir.
I love your Christmas theme. Yes, you're very holiday-ish.
It is the only thing I own. Several people have, well, this is not true. I own a lot of Christmas leggings, but only this one Christmas sweater, and a Grinch one, which I decided to leave off because I can't be Grinchy with you here. Not for a second. So several people have thought it's jammies. It's just, and I will tell you, last year for our holiday party, I marched around LA in this, which maybe, I don't know if this is the height of fashion or not, if you're in Los Angeles, but I wore it. I love it.
In LA, no one would think twice about anything anybody wears.
I got compliments.
I think that I need a phone book or something. Of course, phone books haven't existed.
They're not a thing. Does your chair go up?
No.
Oh.
No.
Does your camera go down?
I've tried. I can't.
Do you want me to lower mine? I don't think I'll come down here with you.
And by the way, I have a line for everything you just said, and I've refrained.
This is good because this is a family-oriented webinar. And honestly, this is an exciting one because although we have both been preaching this since the vaccine conversation, a lot of people don't know the role that veterinary medicine played in getting a COVID vaccine. So that's why you're here. Tell us just what's going on.
Okay, so it's not really the COVID vaccine. It's a drug that's used to treat the COVID-19, which is caused by the SARS coronavirus 2. So backing up a little bit, we know, and this story is really quite incredible. We know that, of course, you'll be the judge of that in a moment. We know that cats can get, especially kittens, a disease we often thought of as fatal called feline infectious peritonitis, right?
Right.
That is the worst thing I think that you, as a technician or a veterinarian, can communicate to a client. Yeah. You know, cancer's never good, but usually, not always, but usually it's an older animal. That doesn't make it easier per se, but it does than to tell someone who just got a kitten, probably because they lost their cat, that they're adult cat, so they now bring a kitten in, because FIP typically, not only, but typically does happen to kittens. So they may still be grieving, and you're telling them that unless they're kitten savvy, they may never even heard of this. And you're telling them that their kitten has this big belly or just ain't doing well because of this immune modulated, which is a fancy word in of itself, disease. And they say, what? It's a kitten, you know, and they're babies. And it's just the most horrible thing. Yeah. For years, the Winn Feline Foundation, which funds cat health studies, has been funding studies on FIP, feline infectious peritonitis.
Right.
And if you go back enough years before, for sure, before you were around and before I was around, we didn't even know what FIP was.
Right.
Didn't know how it worked, what kind of virus it was, if it was a virus. Was it the coronavirus? Because it didn't seem like it was, and on and on. Well, it took years. That's how complicated. And the guy at the head of this, now there are people all over the world studying it, but the one sort of that took it by its reins. And at some point, I wouldn't mind running into the other room and getting his book, which is still a Bible in feline medicine, the first book written on infectious disease in cats, solely devoted to cats. No one thought of doing it until Dr. Niels Peterson, University of California, Davis, did it. And in that book, which was published 1960, whatever it was, the definition of FIP is laughable because it's like back then we just didn't know. It was first discovered around that time. So it took years to figure out how this complicated disease really works, which I can explain if you want, but fast forward the clock a little bit. he and others, many others around the world, were looking for and have been looking for a treatment. And he came to the Winn Feline Foundation. This was maybe 4 or 5 years ago, submitted a grant about a drug called Remdesivir. Now, no one at that point had ever heard of this drug. Gilead, the pharma company that had ownership of the drug, the compound, people heard of this pharma company because it's a really big pharma company. But no one ever heard of Remdesivir. If you Google it, you'll see this was a drug that was created to treat Ebola in people. And it worked okay when there was nothing else. But when something else came around, apparently more than one something else, there was no need for Remdesivir anymore, and it kind of sat on a shelf.
Yeah.
So Dr. Peterson explained in language that's probably beyond my understanding why this compound really would work, this antiviral drug to support the immune system to treat feline infectious peritonitis, or FIP. And our experts with a lot of letters after their names, a lot smarter than I, said, you know what, this actually makes good sense. And when we heard about COVID-19 and the SARS coronavirus, that the novel coronavirus that causes the illness that's called COVID-19, we had a board meeting around that time that the pandemic was kind of kicking off. It was, I think, early March, very early March. And we're all on a Zoom call because, of course, we weren't meeting in person at that point.
Yeah.
And we all looked at one another, and that's how you do it on a Zoom call. You look up there, you look down there, you know. And we were all looking at one another, and everyone said in unison, not hello, how are you doing tonight? We all said Remdesivir, because we knew that the powers that be would look at this drug to treat the novel coronavirus in people, because FIP is caused by a mutation of the feline coronavirus. Now, no one knew whether this drug would be successful in humans because, you know, we're not cats.
Right.
Some of us wish we were.
I was like, we're not lucky enough.
Exactly. So no one knew if it would work, but it turned out to work. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, Dr. Peterson had done, and the reason why we all said Remdesivir is Dr. Peterson had done some clinical trials. They've long since been published, peer-reviewed since. Did these clinical trials that demonstrated that, you know the story, but if you didn't, Beckie, I'd have to say sit down because you would fall down if I told you. And that is, this drug actually treats FIP. And what's so cool is I've been privileged to tell veterinarians this story. And in more than one case, people, you know, tears in their eyes, because this is the worst thing I can communicate. Now, is there a cure tomorrow? Sort of not, and I'll explain that in a minute. But this drug that was just like Remdesivir, that Gilead said we can use for the trial, and I think I said, you'll tell me, that Dr. Peterson wasn't allowed to use Remdesivir. The company Gilead said we have a compound just like it. It's cheaper. Cheaper's better. And we're not going to let you use Remdesivir. Now, it's interesting because they had no way to know, I don't think, that 2 years later this novel coronavirus would happen. But it's a good thing they said that, because it kept more Remdesivir available, because even right now, as they create it, there isn't enough of that drug available, and it's being used around the world. But there's a compound just like it, they said. It's that compound just like it that Dr. Peterson used. Clinical trials were successful. He went back to Gilead. He said, I want the patent on this drug now because it works. We're going to save cat lives. And Gilead said, no, can't do that.
Why would they do that?
That's a really good question. I don't know. It has to, you know, I don't know the answer for sure. I don't think Dr. Peterson does, but Dr. Peterson wasn't going to be dissuaded. He went to Kansas State University, researchers there. And if there's a compound, apparently people who are smart about these things can take that compound and say, I can figure out what's in this drug.
Yes.
So he knew what was in it and made it better.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah.
So fewer side effects, impacting more cats. And it turns out it works. There's two kinds of FIP. There's the effusive or wet, and there's the dry or non-effusive. And this works far better for the wet FIP.
Yeah. Which
So,
is the more deadly form, right? We know.
No, they're all deadly.
No, I know, but I feel like I see the dry form live a lot longer.
Oh, they live longer. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a more virulent form. Might be a better way to say it, perhaps. Because they're both considered fatal, or they were considered fatal.
Right.
That's the whole point in part. So they created a better drug at KC State. That better drug, fewer side effects, impacting more cats. Clinical trials go even better.
Yeah.
So now Dr. Peterson says, I want to do something with this. And Anavive, which is a pharma company, a smaller one, but a pharma company came along. It's it's Anavive Animal Health. It's a veterinary company, which is a huge. There are lots of lessons in this story. One of the big lessons to me: veterinarian. Human physicians have had nothing to do with it except taking the clinical trials of remdesivir to people.
Yeah,
veterinarians can't do that, and the human medicine people did. But
nor do we want to.
What?
Nor do we want to. We know humans are gross.
But it was all based on what veterinarians had learned.
Yeah.
So that drug, Anavive says, we want FDA approval on it. They're seeking approval right now. Approval typically, not for those vaccines we're getting in the arm, but typically take a while.
Yeah.
A lot of money, jumping through a whole lot of hoops for human health or animal health. And we're talking about a couple of years. So these kittens with FIP aren't waiting a couple of years. Here's where the soap opera starts. Are you ready?
Ready.
China. Darn those Chinese. China said, and actually what they did here, one could argue, is good for cats. China said, we also know what's in this compound. We're going to recreate it. There's like 3 or 4 companies from China doing it. One in particular seems to actually do it well. There's the big question.
Yeah.
So this one company in particular does it well. Cats who buy this drug, very few cats buy it. The people who buy the drug for the cats, these cats are living. It's expensive.
Yeah.
By the way, I'll say it again. These cats are living with FIP, and it's really diagnosed FIP. FIP can be misdiagnosed. Lots of things can, but FIP in particular. Sure. But seems to be confirmation here, and it's not just like a clinical trial of 6 cats. We're talking, I don't know how many because they won't tell us, but we're probably talking well over 1,000 cats at this point from around the world, not only the U.S.
Yeah.
They're living. So a client comes to you, Beckie, and says, I have a cat with FIP. As a veterinary professional, do you say, go to the black market, because that's what this is, and use a drug on the internet that I really can't vouch for, that is not FDA approved and actually technically is illegal, and go for it. And I'll help you. And that's tough. Yeah. And you'd have to respond to me as to what you say. What I suggest and hope is veterinarians say, go to the internet, because if you Google it, you can find this company. They pop up first. So the veterinarian didn't do it. You did it as the client. And say, I still took an oath to help.
Right.
And I will help you through it. You'll have to contact the company about the drug. But what I can do is take the blood work periodically. I can check for other signs. I can do all of that and interpret it for you. And maybe give supplemental, if it's needed, to enhance appetite, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I personally believe, this is not legal advice at all, that is appropriate, but it is really a matter of opinion, because we're in such a strange place now. Well, we wait for the FDA to officially approve this, which I have little doubt, based on clinical trials,
right,
that they will. But it's, they don't move really fast. And this is the Center for Veterinary Medicine, so I'm not sure that other things happening are impacting this one way or the other. But I wish our FDA moved faster, but maybe it's for our benefit and protection that they don't. I don't know. It could be argued either way. But in any which case, we now have possibilities for FIP and ultimately a treatment that no one ever would have thought about. And an outcome of that is a drug that no one would have ever thought about that was used for Ebola. It's an antiviral drug, yes, but there are lots of them out there. So why was this one chosen? It was chosen because it proved to impact cats in a good way that had FIP, which is caused by the feline coronavirus.
Right. I remember I heard about this vaccine first from you, from Steve Del Pet World blog. And the excitement was contagious in your words. I remember reading it and thinking a lot of explicitives. Again, this is a family show. And thinking like, this isn't even, it's too good to be true, because you're absolutely right. It is one of, even with the most, highly deadly diseases, we can do a little something. Cancer, we can throw some chemotherapy at it and try to get some more years. We've got lasers, we've got MRIs, we've got all of the amazing treatments. And FIP has eluded us for years and years. And you're so right. It's always these pitiful little kittens. It interferes with adoptability, right? We see these cats in shelters and people don't want them because they're afraid of transmitting to other cats in the home. And so maybe can you speak a little bit to that point is, because we know it is a death sentence, but there's no expiration stamped on these kitties, right?
So I don't call it a death sentence anymore. I would say we know it was a death sentence because I'm not supporting officially any particular website or product, but we know there is a product out there that seems to work for many cats. Yeah. Not every cat, but then again, if you catch cold, chicken soup doesn't work for everybody either, So, I mean, there isn't a drug that works for everybody. Yeah. And also we know that, and I alluded to this earlier, it seems to impact in a good way, wet or effusive FIP more than it does the neurological / dry FIPs. It can help with those too, though. And cure. Oh my God, I used the word cure and FIP. It's just to me astounding to think. I mean, this is the best thing that happened to cats since tuna.
Yeah, or churu. It could be argued. So,
but let me answer your question. I didn't answer your question. So we know today a lot more of factors that potentially can cause FIP. Yes. And I even said that carefully because there is no absolute cause. We know that cats cannot get FIP without the coronavirus, which transforms it mutates inside the cat into an immune-mediated disease called feline infectious peritonitis, or FIP. But why those cats? Well, we know that stress has something to do with it.
Sure.
And it's interesting that because we know that, and again, I'll say it again, we know that. Yes. Today we actually know that. So veterinarians had assumptions for decades.
Sure.
Because what would happen is the kitten would come in to be spayed or neutered, go back home and break with FIP. Or the kitten would come from a breeder, a fancier, and then be rehomed, and then 2 weeks or a month later break with FIP. It's the stress of going to the new home. It's the stress of going to the veterinarian. Those things are hard to avoid, but today we know a little more than, say, 20 years ago, actually a lot more, about de-stressing dogs or cats, for that matter, when rehomed or when going to the veterinarian. So actually doing something about that and paying attention, incidentally, to fear-free and what we've learned from fear-free and taking that into account when we take these kitties to the veterinarian, may be able to save lives. I don't know that for sure, but we know that.
Yeah.
One thought is by Dr. Diane Addy in the UK, although now I think she's in France, actually. But she said, well, prevent the kittens from getting the coronavirus in the first place. But because it's without the coronavirus, this can't happen. And by the way, the coronavirus in kittens is really interesting because, there are all sorts of coronaviruses that different mammal species get. Right. And we're a mammal species, and we get several coronaviruses, including a new one that unfortunately seems to be killing a lot of people on the planet.
The most today, it seems. Today is the record day.
Really?
Yes. Yeah.
For those, I don't know how many people are watching this right now or whatever, but there are people that seriously think this is all just like some sort of put on, or it's being made up, or that it has to do with politics in some way. And if you know of as many people as probably you too, that have gotten either very sick or have died, you wouldn't be saying that. And it just makes me very, very sad. It's a terrible, terrible thing. But the humans get, I think it is 3 kinds, not including this coronavirus, the new novel SARS coronavirus 2. Previous to that, we got 3, maybe 4 coronaviruses we call the common cold. We're uncomfortable for days or weeks at a time.
Yes.
Kittens get a coronavirus that doesn't even seem to give them, for the most part, discomfort. Excuse me. And by the time your client calls you and says, my kitten's got some loose stool, which for kittens can be caused, lots of reasons for that in kittens, right? But can be caused by the novel coronavirus. By the time you return that phone call, excuse me, if that's the cause of it, they're better. Yeah. I mean, that's how quickly they knock it out. And for the most part, there are no signs. So they've done something right with these cats. And if we could figure out how they do this, how they can not, and they do this the same thing with, so they can get, veering off topic here, but they can get, we now know that there's experts who knew more than I did at the beginning of all this. They said, Beckie, cats are going to get the coronavirus. I'm talking about the new novel SARS-2 coronavirus that I alluded to that you said today was a record day.
Yeah.
I was told by those experts way early on that we're in trouble with cats, potentially. But here's what happened. They were right about one thing. They were right. Their cell receptors really like this coronavirus.
Yeah.
As soon, for most cats, and we don't know how many, because who's testing every cat out there?
Right.
But for most cats, it seems they get it. They get it from people. They don't get it from the air. They don't get it from dogs. They don't want to get anything from dogs. They'd be embarrassed. But they do get it. And it seems as though for the overwhelming, and I do mean the word overwhelming, overwhelming. I'm making up numbers because nobody knows those numbers. Like 98%, 99%, the overwhelming number. They don't show any signs at all. And they knock it out of their systems like instantly. Now, if we can figure out how cats are doing that, the other thing that veterinarians are working on now is figuring out how bats are able to similarly do the same thing with a variety of coronaviruses that we would get very sick from, like this one, if it mutates to affect people. Yeah. And this one mutated to impact people. No one knows exactly how that mutation, of course, occurred. If we could figure that out. Now, who's working on this stuff? It's veterinarians. And you know what? If you and I, Beckie, I don't think I'm very smart usually. But a year ago, I said, and it was a year ago, literally a year ago, I said my New Year's resolution for 2020 is to talk more about One Health, because we need to pay more attention to this. And One Health, by the way, is the intersection of animals, including wild animals, not necessarily only companion animals, the environment, and us.
Yes.
And where all that comes together. Well, if we had paid more attention, last year I interviewed Jane Goodall, and she didn't say to me, we're going to have this novel coronavirus outbreak. First of all, she doesn't talk like that. And second of all, she didn't say that. But what she did say was something like, I am really concerned increasingly about these so-called wet markets in China and other places. Yes. Because you've got animals living there under hugely stressful and inhumane and unsanitary conditions, intersecting with people, intersecting with a wide variety of other animal species that normally would never come together.
Right.
She said, this is a recipe for a problem. We know that. We've known that for a long time. Well, here we are with that problem.
Yeah. You know, it's similar. It makes me think about avian influenza. We know that a very similar thing happened with that, where, you know, it mutated to where cats are able to contract the avian influenza and then pass it on to people. It became a zoonotic concern. And, you know, people have to take this seriously. Like you said, the One Health initiative, because I was just saying this to my husband tonight, is this isn't the last we're going to see. And the idea that veterinary medicine and human medicine could come together and work together just seems like a no-brainer, right? Because we have experience with these types of viruses forever. For a long time, we've been dealing with them. How prevalent, other than the cold, we know the human medicine isn't really dealing with it. So it makes so much sense to combine together. So tell me, you don't have an idea right now, but when do you think this is going to come out? When do you think we're going to be able to say, oh, FIP, no problem?
That's a really good question. So probably in 2000, don't quote me on this, just between us, shh, probably 2022 or 3.
It's pretty amazing, right?
It won't be this year, I don't think.
Yeah.
Because once it's approved, they have to ramp up production of the drug, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And, you know, the money behind it is nice, but it's nothing like what we're used to with COVID-19 or anything that happens in human medicine. So, I mean, people can follow it, but in the meantime, and again, if it sounds like I'm promoting a product I shouldn't, I'm just saying there's alternatives out there for people. And that in itself is incredible. Now, unfortunately, you know, I've talked to the Chinese company, and they're wonderful to talk to, the leading company. Yeah. But I told them point blank, you charge too much, you know. And by the way, can I plug one thing?
You can plug whatever you want, friend. This is your show.
No, I am just a guest on your show. So the Winn Feline Foundation is responsible for decades for supporting the funding for nearly everything we know, and even things we don't know. Yeah. You know, sometimes science is also proving, okay, this might work. Oh, it doesn't work. Understanding it doesn't work is actually good science too. So all of that was supported for decades and decades by the Winn Feline Foundation.
Yeah.
And with this great breakthrough, a group of us, led by a dear friend of yours, said, you know what, we need to bring people together. And we held a symposium last year at the University of California, Davis. There's a white paper, and by the way, the people that came together is pretty much, not only was Dr. Peterson there, of course, pretty much anyone who's done research on FIP on the planet was there. And the one or two who weren't were there virtually. And this was 2019, so it was, well, we could all actually see each other.
Yes.
And there's a white paper on that's available. If you're interested in far more details than I can give, on the Winn Feline website, which is Winn, W-I-N-N, felinefoundation.org.
So talked a little bit to the point about Winn and where they give me your elevator pitch on Winn, because it's very important.
Yeah. So, do any of you have cats? I know I'm hearing two people. Okay. So for those two out there, two people, or you have two cats?
I have two cats.
Okay. Yeah. So for both of your cats, or the two people watching who have cats, everything we know about those cats was once funded, probably, by the Winn Feline Foundation. Let me give you some examples. So very classically, before Beckie Mossor's parents were even born in the 1960s, there was heart disease going on in cats called dilated cardiomyopathy. And cats were actually going blind. And some were dying, and some were having other health issues. And at that time, the cardiologists were saying, well, we need a drug. We need to deal with how to treat. Well, Dr. Paul Payan, who was only a student then from the University of California, Davis, came to the Winn Feline Foundation and said, you know what? I think there's not enough of an amino acid, which all cats need and cannot produce on their own, called taurine in our cat food. And I don't know exactly who, he'd have to tell you who else he went to, but apparently all those other people said, thank you for putting that up there. All those other people said, what? Crazy idea. Oh, you're young, you're crazy, you don't know what you're doing. So the Winn Feline Foundation said, this could make sense. And it turned out he was totally right. And now every manufactured cat food has plenty of taurine to take care of cats, and we hardly see dilated cardiomyopathy anymore. So that was huge, right? I mean, we'll never know how many cat lives. Eventually, someone else, I guess, would have figured it out, and someone would have funded it, but it was the Winn Feline Foundation. It was Dr. Paul Payan. More recently, stomatitis. Nasty. It's an immune-mediated disease that impacts, it's real painful, too.
Very painful.
The teeth and the gums and everything in the cat's mouth, more than the teeth and gums. And currently the treatment is try to make them as comfortable as possible, but I don't believe there's an analgesic or a drug that really works.
You know what we do?
What do you do?
We pull out all the teeth.
That's right. So, and that can help a significant percent of cats. Doesn't help them all, actually. So it turns out what's happening is that stem cell therapy seems to be helping.
Yeah.
That was funded by the Winn Feline Foundation.
Yes.
And now there are companies looking at creating drugs that are these exact stem cells that will provide the therapy. And in fact, there's a clinical trial going on right now. So it's all was created by the Winn Feline Foundation saying, we are going to fund this. How much space do shelter cats need? Well, we now know, that's not, you don't have to answer.
A lot, way more than they get.
we know the answer because of Winn Feline Foundation funding. Early spay neuter in cats. Can it be too early? How early is too early? Winn Feline Foundation. The feline leukemia, it was called the feline lymph node disease because they didn't know what to call it, and they didn't know it was a retrovirus. They didn't know anything about it, again, way back before even your parents' time. But nevertheless, nobody knew. Well, it was the Winn Feline Foundation funding that figured that out. And then actually the Morris Animal Foundation came in and said, retrovirus, okay, it does this, this, and this, and this. We can create a vaccine for it, which was then badly needed. So I can go on and on about, it's really incredible. No one has a cat on the planet where that cat doesn't live day to day in a way that the Winn Feline Foundation has helped that cat in some way. My friend Beth Adelman, a journalist and cat behavior consultant, said Winn Feline Foundation affects every cat every day. And she's right about that.
Yeah.
And I've been on their board for about 12 years, and I'm so proud that they still tolerate me on their board.
Well, I don't know if they could function without you, Steve, but one thing I really do want to emphasize about Winn Feline Foundation, and I'm glad you mentioned Morris Animal Foundation as well, because they do fund a lot of important work, is that they of course get grants, but so much of the money that comes into Winn Feline Foundation that is helping to develop drugs like remdesivir and other life-saving drugs and life-saving information and education is funded by cat lovers. There is a lot of private personal donations. And so I just think it's really important to say that it is because of the love of cats, because of the dedication of cat owners, that we're able to fund a lot of these studies, right?
I would, yes, to everything you said. And, what baffles me is that for some reasons, really, so we have a board member that's on the board of the American Kennel Club Canine Health Foundation. And he notes that it's so much easier to raise money for dog health studies than cat. When I could say her name, but I'll leave it out of it. It's not that important. But going back 3 CEOs, I think it is, Morris Animal Foundation, that person told me, Steve, this year we spent more money funding llama studies than cat studies, literally. So it's frustrating to raise money for cat health for some reason. My hope is that we're changing that. And I would love to come back someday, sometime, and talk about how our cats are not Garfield anymore. Because our perceptions of cats have changed. We better understand cats behaviorally and medically. We are addressing their emotional health as we never have before. Fear Free is greatly responsible for that. Cat-friendly practices from the American Association of Feline Practitioners is greatly responsible for that. And because of my speaking out for what I've called the Rodney Dangerfield of pets, she has no idea who I'm talking about.
I know who Rodney.
You're too young.
No way. I appreciate you, but I know exactly who you're talking. I can't get no respect.
That's something like that. Yeah, I get no respect. Yeah. But they are America's and have been America's for a long time. Most popular pet, yet more cats land in shelters. More cats are given up than dogs. Sometimes cats are just booted outside the house. They don't even have the chance. Cats are not spayed neutered as often as dogs. Now, this data, they're more likely to be abused, by the way, regarding animal abuse. I can go on and on. Now, why is all this less likely to be microchipped by far? Why is all this true? Some people lose a cat, they don't even look for him. Right. What I just said is what I was saying 10 and 15 years ago.
Right.
And 5 years ago even. Today, no. It's changing. And it's people like you, it's the millennials that are really driving that change. It's true. It's true. And I would love to come back and talk about how it really is changing to benefit cats. Yeah. Cats are being thought of in a whole new, different way. So we hope, and by the way, I will tell you something that I've not talked about before. You want a scoop?
Yeah.
I'm saying the word scoop only because I'm talking about cats. But yeah, I know. There is going to be big news, really big news from the Winn Feline Foundation that'll come in January.
Regarding?
The Winn Feline Foundation.
The foundation itself.
Yeah.
This is exciting.
How's that for a tease? Will you have me back to talk about it?
I'll have you back to talk about anything. Steve Dale, you are one of my most favorite people, and I appreciate you saying millennials, and I appreciate that you lump me into those. I don't ever check my driver's license. I think you give me a lot of grace. But the truth of the matter is it's because of people like you. Because way before it was cool to talk cats, way before it was cool to study cats, preach for cats, we honor the fact that we speak for those who can't in the veterinary industry and in the pet industry, and that we have a voice for those that don't have a voice. You have been speaking for cats well before, and you will be speaking for cats well after. I know it's been cool and fashionable and in vogue. And excuse me, you are absolutely a leader in this. And not only are you a leader in this, you elevate all the leaders around you. You are constantly talking about all of the amazing people and giving credit to the amazing folks, and usually shorting yourself. And the truth of the matter is we need folks like you to help us supplement the education in the veterinary space. We have to do all the species all day long, and we don't always get to have these conversations. So having reliable resources like Steve's Dale Pet World to go to, read the blogs, stay on the Facebook, know what's going on in legislation, know what's going on in animal health, and know what's going on with cats, so we can be a part of it. Is there anything people can do you think, to help elevate this remdesivir? Can we make it go faster? Can we demand it? Can we start asking our vets? What can all the people out here listening take away from this today to be actionable?
Really good question. And I don't know how much time we have, but before we go, I have a question for you, actually.
Okay.
But I want to answer your question because it's a good one. I can't. I mean, it's the FDA's timetable. And in the meantime, yes, I guess you could try contacting the Food and Drug Administration Center for Veterinary Medicine. But I'm thinking they're not going to get too far. I mean, they're just waiting for the steps that companies have to go through.
Yeah.
So if you have a cat or a kitten, or if you know someone that has been diagnosed with a confirmed diagnosis of FIP, then I would do what I said if you're open to it.
Yeah.
I would Google, look for the company I'm talking about. They're at the top of Google. It's not an American company, as I said. Up to you as to, there's issues. Sometimes the U.S. Postal Service, I'm told, even intercepts the drug coming in.
Really?
Yeah. So, it's fraught with issues you would not have if it were approved here. But the fact is that it's not. As I said, it's not cheap. There's no guarantee it'll work. But then I'm not sure there's a guarantee always, about any drug necessarily.
Sure.
These are babies, and with FIP, they really are, because they're kittens,
Babies,
typically. So, it's a personal choice that an individual has to make. And what breaks my heart is that some people can't afford that choice. And even when the drug is available in America, it won't be free,
right.
And it's also a difficult drug to administer. It's a horse vaccine, it's this giant, and it's not a vaccine, it's an injection.
Sure.
Technically, there's a difference, I guess. And although there is a pill.
Okay.
Also. But, pilling a cat is no fun either.
I was going to say, either way, we've got our hands full.
Yeah. I mean, if it were not such a difficult injection to give, but it takes a while to give it, and it has to be given slowly to be most efficacious, I believe. But if you want to do all that, and thousands or however many have with a % of success that I believe, based on the internet, whatever that's worth, it may be worth the roll of the dice, but it's a cost. There's a cost associated with it.
Have you heard of FIP Warriors? We just got a comment. So talk about those a little bit.
Well, these are people that are there. And thank you for mentioning this site. They're experiencing it in a way, happily I'm not. And they offer advice to others who are going through the same thing. So indeed, they are a great resource, Becky. Thank you.
Yeah, that comes from Lily. I'm not Katmowski. I don't think that's her real last name, but I wanted to say it. That is amazing. All right, Steve, before I let you go, you had a question for me.
Yeah. How much money did you raise?
$7,600.
Now, I want to explain what we're talking about. $7,600 doesn't sound like a lot of money. But one day, what did I call you? I wrote a story about this. I called you a lightning bolt because what did I say? You're filled with energy and always bright ideas or something. Something like that. But it's true. You woke up one day and said, you know what? I have so many colleagues that are losing their jobs. Veterinary medicine is no different than who lives next door to any of you, and that person that's lost their job because of everything going on. whether it be a restaurant worker, someone that worked at a store that's no longer open. And some veterinary clinics have cut back. A few have even closed. It's interesting because at the same time, other vet clinics, so it's based on geography in part, are more crowded, more busy than they ever have been, and are suffering enormous stress as a result of that. But that matters too. And you said, I want to do something to help these people in my profession. And you instantly built a Facebook page, and people know you, they love you, and people began to give money. People like me began to write about it. If Beckie Mossor or whatever were to do it, I don't know her. I'm sure she's wonderful, but I wouldn't have written about it instantly. But I know you, and I know the credibility you bring. And you raised, yes, $7,500 is only $7,500, but to a person who's looking for their next meal. I do several radio shows, and on the radio this past Sunday, we had someone from a food pantry on, and she said the lines had never been so long. I've been there for 5 years or something. Lines had never been so long. And these are people that have never before. In fact, we had some people in line that once volunteered at the food pantry to help us. And now they're in line at the food pantry. And Beckie said, you know what? I'm standing up and I'm helping these folks. Congratulations.
Thank you. You're making me cry, Steve. Stop it. I appreciate it. These are the people that are loving your FIP kitties, that are there for you guys. These people give all day long because we love what we do, and they are fighting their own battles. So we were very grateful and very proud to help them. And all of our team members at Basepaws were very helpful. Steve, you were very helpful. And I just say all I did was make a page and some spreadsheets. This truly was the grace and the kindness and the giving of people like you and the folks in the veterinary industry.
Well, no, you're not giving yourself enough credit, but congratulations. And to Basepaws for all they do, including supporting you.
So much. They do so much, and they're doing so much with the health markers and so much in bringing this education to cat owners, because we want everyone who is watching today to know there's an option. The helpless, hopeless feeling that goes with an FIP diagnosis, whether you're in the veterinary industry or you're an owner and you go home and you start Googling, you're going to read some really scary things, and they're not wrong. And the idea that we can have something to lean into, to look forward to, and to continue to watch Steve Dale Pet World reporting on what we're finding out about it is truly a gift. And Steve Dale, you are truly a gift.
Well, it's a gift my wife wants to return. So
stop it. I want one more thing from you, Steve.
Yes.
Will you please join me in wishing Kristen Warman a happy birthday tomorrow?
Oh, how nice. I know Kristen.
I know you know Kristen. She is an amazing support to Basepaws. She is the say all, do all. She has been my work wife for the last 2 years. And so make sure you guys wish her a happy birthday here in the Cat Club, wherever, and make sure she has a wonderful day, because she is a wonderful, deserving person.
I'm sure she will. Feliz cumpleaños, señorita Kristen.
We are going to have you back soon. Again, you guys go to Steve Dale Pet World. It's on Facebook, Instagram. Go to his blog. Stay up to date, not just on this, but everything else that's going on. Winn Feline Foundation, Morris Animal Foundation, if you're looking for some places to give.
Yeah, I like Morris. You know, the thing that I'm working on, I'm not going to talk to you about it now in detail, but pet stores selling dogs and cats. So many people at this time of year look for a pet. And what we know actually is that old data is old data.
Yeah.
That you can adopt an animal from a shelter at this time of year. It's okay. You could take a pet home for the holidays. It is just fine. So the notion that people are going to give up their pet more because they purchased their pet on December 20th or something, that's wrong. However, what we also know is that animals sold at pet stores who happen to be dogs or cats are from puppy mills or kitten mills. They're from large-scale facilities. So the more cities, and there are about 300 of them now, that have banned the sales of dogs and cats and rabbits too in some cases. 3 states have done it. Dozens of counties have done it. And I'm involved with hoping there are more including, it's a long story to tell here, but it's on my website, what's going on in my city, Chicago, to get this done again, because there was a loophole in the wording and the pet stores took advantage of that anyway. It's all on my website.
Follow that on the website. It's incredibly important, and it's incredibly.
And there's something else on the website that only you have to see. So, and by the way, I want you to go to a Facebook page, the Human Animal Bond Association Facebook page, because you'll see videos like this, and it's also on my page. So imagine, dog goes out, and then I'll let you go, and everybody I will let go. Dog goes out to go piddle, right? So I think it was in Texas. So she opens the door, the dog goes, and they have a big space. Texas, of course, everybody has
everything's big.
Yeah. So the dog goes for miles and miles, well, maybe not that far, but the dog goes and does business. Yeah. And then the lady who let the dog out, it's her dog, she hears this meowing. And then she takes her phone to capture what she saw. What she saw was her dog pushing a kitten home. The kitten kind of didn't want to go. And then the dog is saying, but you'll be safe here. Come on. And it was an abandoned kitten. Follow me. And then the kitten was following, and then the kitten stopped, and the dog would be a herding dog, even though it was a terrier, and would come around and make sure and even help the kitten up some steps into the house. And now the kitten is a permanent resident. I
did see that on your page. You guys, if you need to feel good, you need to get a cry in tonight, go and look at that. And Steve, you're always posting amazing stuff like that, because you are truly, you represent the human animal bond in everything that you do. You exemplify it in everything you do. And you help to educate us so that we can truly live our passions as well. If we don't have time to research, you're bringing us the great information. So don't worry, we're going to have you back so soon. And you guys get over to
anytime you want, anytime. So next time I could promote it so people know that I'm here. And then the other thing is, though, but I see that I've got to go, because what I saw is Costco has a sale on deodorant, so I gotta go.
You be safe if you're out there. Get you curbside if that's what you've got to do. And like I told you earlier, it's not smell-o-vision. You come back anytime, deodorant or no deodorant. We want to have you here. You guys go to Steve Del Pet World. Please make sure you're following him on Facebook, Instagram. You're going to get all of this amazing information. Make sure you're following us on Facebook and Instagram so you know when we have him back, in case we don't tell him he can advertise it. And thank you guys all for being here. Share this information. Share this webinar so that people who they know they have options, because we are going to have to let people know, right?
Yes.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Steve, I wish you the happiest of holidays.
Oh, happy holidays to you also.
And we will talk to you. I can't.
Whoops. You froze. I don't even know. Am I still here? And I'm the only one here, perhaps. Or maybe I'm just talking to myself. I don't know. Guys, if you are here and I'm talking to anybody, thank you very much. I wish you all a happy and safe holiday as well. Was I just talking to myself? You were talking to yourself, but I could hear you. It's, I put quarters in my camera and I just ran out. So. Okay. That means we got to let you go. And, thank you so much, Steve. Thank you to everyone who is here and who added. I see Casey and Carolina and Bree and Stephanie. You guys are amazing. Lily, thank you so much. And we're going to see you again, Steve, real soon. Lily Miowski, thank you. Bye. Thanks, Becky. Bye-bye.